The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of cultured brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet his daily duties as a journalist that questions properly and uses his ears to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living God stepping in score, Sunyez Allah, aka Skillustrator Low. And we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media, where every intrigue will have its own show, every incredible thought will have its own episode, and every timeless insight will be archived. This is, as I always say, this is my show on what I call my element of hip hop, which I like to describe as being a writer of art on art and science on music. The only show in history on the hip hop writer element that I, a veteran of over a quarter of century, helped to pioneer. So there's a couple of things, you know, the usual stuff, you know, break out all that money you got, get it out. I got books out. I got the filtered reel, Essays from the Invisible Renaissance on paperback. That is the beginning of documenting this era, so it's out on paperback. Let me know. I have signed copies. I have many signed copies. People are still coming to get me for that. I also have my news book, my ebook, The Reel of 2020. And that basically puts everything into an analysis where I don't just give you my favorites or anything like that. What I did was I made an entirely new revolutionary system of ciphers that bracket and categorize the entire musical universe we're dealing with, though. And it's a prelude to a very special book series that I have working on. That's coming up new. I'm actually going to read a portion of it, a sentence of it, with my guest today when we get him on the line. But that's going to be out too. So the Reel of 2020 ebook, that's something, you know, you can only get from me directly. So email me, Sunyez97, SUNEZ97 at gmail.com, or DM me on Sunyez, SUNEZ on IG or the Twitter, Sunyez7. And I get that to you, man. It's a fair price. And also, in addition to all that, for those who buy those books in a bulk and get those together in a package, there's also a free ebook, the Sunyez Crates, which is the very first ebook I put together, though, about that was like hundreds of pages of reviews I did in 2013. I really flooded the hell out of things, and I decided to make it all an ebook, you know, for people to really engage into, and that's free if you get with that. So aside from other news, my brother DJ Toshi, we got episode 293 finally out. Great show. Pause One, who's a real Renaissance man, podcast MC, show producer, promoter, all of these things, and a lot of great stuff. You know, he's doing so much in LA. He's really bridging the gap too, I think. You know what I mean? And making it more visible for us over here. And of course, though, one of the ideal boom bap groups out there, The Good People with Saint and DJ emcee. It's got a lot of great details about their new album. Pause One has new works out too, so look for them on the Bandcamp because they got all the details. But I had a great build with them. And of course, DJ Toshi played great stuff. And you know, DJ Toshi, I made it on DJ Toshi's show. I didn't just make it as a host. I made it one of my songs. A song I'm on, though, actually ended up on it, though. So that's a good thing. And check for our last show, 93. We had the God Noah the Flood. And a flood of work, though. So we went through his catalog, and we were building on little points and ideas about it. You know what I mean? Last but not least, though, before we, you know, connect with our guest, I want to say Remembered Imperfection, R.I.P. To Gift of Gab of Black Alicious, you know. he returned to the essence. He died, passed away a couple of days ago, and it became known on the internet, and a lot of people spoke about him out there in the Bay Area, though, crucial to that movement. But also another thing, Blackalicious, especially Gift of Gab. When a lot of people diss like lyrical miracle stuff, he was doing that. He was doing that. He was a master of breath control, a master of all the techniques lyrically, a real technician on the mic, to say the least, to put it lightly. And, he passed away. And if you're a collector and you don't really know much about him, though, go check out, get it on your Spotify or get it downloaded somehow. Buy it. Buy Blackalicious' debut album, Nia, because if you don't see the excellence there, then you won't be able to follow the rest of the catalog. You know what I mean? If you don't see that brilliance there, then Blazing Arrow or The Craft or anything else that he released, the EPs and all that, that Blackalicious released. And I think even I myself didn't follow Gift of Gab as deeply in his solo career. But certainly his Blackalicious career, though, is definitely worthy of any collector. So remember the perfection to him and condolences to his family. Yeah, but we're going to tap into our guests right now. Just got to get the link to him. We're going to be building with Skyzoo. We're trying to get him on the line. Going back on some points, you know what I mean? There's a lot of albums that have come out this year, and what I've been trying to do with this show this year is try to document it by having the best interviews and builds that I can, because there's going to be other places where I really get in depth about all of the music that I've been listening to. You know what I mean? I haven't even updated my collection though, but my list to my collection. Got you. Yeah, so we're definitely going to get to him soon, because I was on the wrong thing. Here we go. So we should be good now. And now we could get to our guest. But I've got over 130 albums though, you know what I mean? And it always works though when Skyzoo makes an album. So we're trying to get him on the line now. So many great artists this year, you know what I mean? And I keep hearing people, Peace.
Peace, what's going on?
Peace, Skyzoo. Yeah, it took us a while to get you online. But that was on my own technical difficulties here. Hey, peace, Skyzoo. What's the science? Can you hear us out there? We still got Skyzoo. Peace. Okay, let's get him back. All right. A lot of stuff to build on. Peace.
What's going on? Yeah, your phone was cutting out for a little while.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah. Hopefully our connection is good now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Man, Skyzoo, there's so much to talk to you about. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna end up going through some of the stuff we built on the last time when I had you on DJ Toshi's Classic Storm Radio. But you know, when I was preparing this Skyzoo build that we have, I was like, man, you can make a whole build off one of the songs off this new album. And I was like, this is a real problem for me. You know what I mean? It's a real problem for me. A lot of homework, you know? And I'm just prefacing this because I found it funny, because I saw an interview and you was like, you know, some people, they don't get everything that's in a song. So you've kept me up at night thinking, did I understand everything that was in this fucking Skyzoo album though? You know, I don't know. I don't think so. You know what I mean? But that's the repeat value. You know what I mean?
That's the beauty of it.
Indeed. I want to start off with the listener, reading something to the listener. This is from a book. This is from an upcoming book of mine, because I've already used something I wrote about Skyzoo in my other book, Filtered Real. essays from the Invisible Renaissance, but this is from an upcoming book that I have that is unreleased so far yet. It's almost finished. And I said, Skyzoo rhymes never not masterfully in the break's pocket, but he melodifies with inflection and a spoken melisma, like a flurry of accents that bring a unity with the drum accompaniments, whether it's horns signifying, keys grooving, you know? And it was, I wrote that inspired off one of the songs that you had, you know what I mean, on this new album.
Wow.
And
wow, man, I'm honored by that sentiment, man, and the way you put that together.
Yeah, you know, because I've been trying to define, you know, and also having fun. You know, I tell the listener, you know, when I interview someone in my show, I spend a lot of time listening to the music exclusively, you know what I mean? So my children have to suffer that I've become Skyzoo, you know, like, so I've become a Puerto Rican Skyzoo over the week, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
So all your inflections and all that kind of stuff, even talking to my kids about the possibilities of them doing wrong. And I talk to them in the narrative like you do, you know, and you was going to do this and then that's happened to you and you could have done this and should have and could have, you know what I mean, start rolling things. But nobody but me gets it though. So I'm always left alone here. But, you know, before we start this build, I want to thank you, Skyzoo, because I consider it a great honor that you and Napoleon were okay with me getting on a track with you two on G-Dep off Napoleon's album, Hole in My Heart Part 1. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, absolutely, man. Shout out to Napoleon and shout out to you as well for being on that, man. That was a dope joint. You know, when I saw that you was on it, I was like, oh, word. It was like an ill surprise. You know, that was dope.
Yeah, that's peace. Yeah. You don't like Pun said, I'm not a fucking singer. You know what I mean? I'm not a rapper. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I just try to write dope shit, you know what I mean? And it's interesting because I try to write shit in my element so it looks good on paper. You write it so it sounds good. But I like the way your shit looks on paper, though. You know what I'm saying? It looks like poetry on paper. It has its stanza formats when you read them on paper, too. It's really dope.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But before we get to this build, I want to throw out something, though, because there's so many things to talk to you about, right? And I got to take it with the basketball. You know what I mean? I grew up a Knicks fan. And I wanted to throw this out there because people throw out, like, if the Knicks going to win this and that. That's not what I'm going to ask you. But it's probably because, you know, I'm a 5%er, so Melo left. So probably that's why I'm not following the Knicks as heavily. But then, you know what I'm saying? No, that had a thing to it, though. That had a thing to it. But, at the same time, right, it was hard for me to follow the Knicks. I just didn't have the heart. And I wanted to throw this to you, Skyzoo. After I saw the things that they did to Oakley and then the stuff that they did to Ewing, though, it was hard to root for them. They had the same vibe as, like, the gentrification Nets. You know what I mean? I wanted to know, how do you equalize that? How do you deal... What was your rationale? How do you deal with that as a fan? And I'm saying that, too, because I'm a fan, like... I'm not a big, heavy basketball fan for teams as much as I am individuals, but I'm a big Mets fan. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I don't know if I would be able to stop rooting for the Mets if they did that, but that soured me on the Knicks, and I want to know how you dealt with it because nobody ever asked you about that.
No, that's true. No, nobody's asked me about that. You know, I'm a huge Knicks fan. I've been a Knicks fan since birth. You know, my dad was a Knicks fan. He saw, you know, 2 championships and all that as a little kid. So it's invested in me, you know, it's in my DNA, it's in my bloodstream. So it's hard for me to leave them alone. I'm the first one to call them out when they do some stupid shit, but at the same time, you know, I never leave them. I just check them on what they're doing or what they're not doing. But, you know, everything with Oakley and Ewing, that was horrible, you know, and then with the Melo stuff, you know, I remember all that because, you know, Melo's the homie. So I was going to a lot of those games, floor seats on the floor, you know what I mean? Like under the basket and leaving the games with Melo and his team, like, cause that's my man, you know, that's my people's. So I saw all that firsthand, you know, and it was crazy, man. You know, with the Melo stuff, you know, obviously they got rid of that regime with Phil, you know, so that was the problem and they got rid of him. And I just look at it like, you know, it's really hard for me to leave them alone. They would have to do some Donald Sterling shit for me to really, really be done with them. You know what I mean? And leave them alone. Like, it's hard just because of the loyalty. Like, because at the end of the day, if Dolan sold a team tomorrow or if he stayed for another 30 years, like, you know, at the end of the day, like, it's the Knicks. Now, you know, I'm not going to let what he does run me off, because the day is gonna come where he won't be there. You know what I mean? And for the record, you know, he did all right this year. Like, he let them breathe and let them do their thing. You know, so I got to give it up where it's due. If I can chop him down when he's doing wrong, I can big him up when he's doing right. So, you know, he let them breathe this year. He let them do what they had to do, and it worked. You know, if he did some Donald Sterling shit, I'm out forever. But other than that, you know, I'm around.
Yeah, that is if he did that Donald Sterling shit and then they got rid of him, that would be great, though. You know what I mean? So
right.
Yeah. So I guess I root for him to do some Sterling shit, so that way they get rid of him.
I don't know if it's worth whoever would have to feel that the other side of that fence if he did some Donald Sterling shit. So I don't know.
Yeah, very true, definitely. You know what I mean? Definitely. You know, and you know, yeah, I'm glad you said that, because like I'm really a player guy. Like my father wouldn't let me watch basketball unless I followed a team. But I was, you know, I'm a little guy, so I was an Isaiah Thomas fan to the end. You know what I mean? And that was, you know, the way you was rooting for Penny, I guess it was kind of the way I was going with Isaiah. You know what I mean?
That's dope.
Yeah, so I had the Knicks hat and I had the Isaiah jersey. You know, totally all fucking fucked up with my matching. You know what I mean? But
no, that's dope.
But that was the way it was, you know what I mean? But yeah, I appreciate that, you know, because I've been trying to reconcile that, you know what I mean? Because really all these sports teams, they got some type of racist or horrible, corrupt thing that they got under the belly if we just research hard enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I feel you.
Absolutely, but definitely, you know, you know, switching to another thing, because there's so much I want to ask you. I was thinking about this and listening to Milestones so long, I was thinking like, You called it Milestones, the EP. This was, it was incredible. We barely get songs about fathers, but you gave a whole, really an album's worth, so it was incredible. And
thank you.
What I found intriguing too, the thing that sticks in my head though, was this idea of the 10 years old thing. You know what I mean? And I know you get asked about this a lot, but I found it interesting because it's all different types of parenting that go on. You know what I'm saying? And in my life, I have 2 children, but I have them with different mothers. You know what I mean? Like different mothers. Mm-hmm. So I'm a non-custodial parent. I'm not with my kids all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that 10-year-old mark is a very important marker for me. So that's why the song is really important, the way you pointed that out, because you talked about 10 doing something, but I also felt like 10 was also something to make sure I do something. You know what I mean? That was like a significant ending of their childhood. For some reason, it happens at 10, and then it's just different. And you really caught that in the song, you know?
Right. No, thank you, man. Thank you. I mean, you definitely got it as a listener because of the way you broke it down. You know, we look at things, and when we're growing up, man, 10 years old is kind of, especially for little boys, 10 years old is that age where you start seeing things a little differently. You know, you're looking at a girl and she looks a little different than she used to. You're not ready yet, but you feel like you might want to give a little kiss. You know, like there's something different going on there. That's not the little girl that you want to play fight with outside anymore. You know, but you don't understand why. You know, at 13 you understand why, but at 10 you don't understand why yet. But there's a lot of little things that, you know, as a boy you need a man to teach you that a woman just isn't going to be able to teach you, nor should she have to. That's why there's 2 parents, you know. So I feel like if you're not going to be together at 10 years old, you got to get that little boy. I tell everybody I know that got a son but don't live with him, I say, yo, at 10 years old, get that boy. Get him, you know? Indeed,
I definitely see that, you know what I mean? And I definitely see that significance because obviously a lot of the work I end up doing, you know, teaching at a law school is being a mentor to young boys, you know what I mean? Young boys, men, stuff like that. So it's important. We got to get them somehow, even if their parents can't get them, you know what I mean? So that song really stuck in my head, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
But yeah, such a great album, you know what I mean? And you know what I found interesting is that, you know, when they say life imitates art, I was thinking like, you know, you named your son Miles, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I guess some of it was Miles Davis, right? And that was, you know, he's really my obsessive introduction into jazz because that's who I was, you know, obsessively digging for first. But then you had to go all out Miles and outdo all the Miles collectors out there and get a vocal cord surgery. You know what I mean? And be on your Miles Davis shit too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Word.
So I found that funny though. You know what I mean? But of course, though, you were still rapping dope. So that means that you didn't do the Miles all the way though. You didn't yell at nobody. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Because they told me that too. That was one of my reservations with it. I was like, if I get this surgery, man, and I bounce back sounding like Miles Davis because something didn't go right, they was like, yeah, that's on you. As long as you do the right things, you'll be fine. He didn't do the right things. You read the stories about how in 2 or 3 days, if the next day, whatever it was, he was yelling at people when they say, yo, don't talk for a month or a week or whatever. He was already on it, so I took that shit serious, man. I didn't talk for almost a month. Like, I took that shit serious.
How did that help you? You know what I mean? Did that help you become an even more intense writer? I would imagine.
Nah, it was weird, man. It was really hard to live. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, you don't realize how there's certain things you take for granted, and you don't realize how serious that is. So when you're walking around the house with a dry erase board and you're writing every little thing down and you're erasing it and writing it, it was annoying, man. I kind of just locked myself in the room. It was so annoying, man. Like, they told me, like, I couldn't pick up my son. My son is 3. They was like, yeah, you can't pull no weight on your cord. So if you lift something 20, 30 pounds, my son's like 38, 39 pounds. They're like, yo, if you lift him up, that's going to pull on your vocal cord. I couldn't pick up my kid. I couldn't talk to him because he doesn't really get it. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't really get what happened. I mean, we explained it to him, but he don't understand. So he just wants to come play with me and mess with me and bug out. So I literally was like locked up in the room watching Netflix, man. It kind of sucked, but it was cool being away. Like, I got to like quarantine without quarantining. You know what I mean? But it kind of sucked. I definitely wasn't writing though. I kind of was just chilling. I definitely wasn't writing.
Yeah. What's interesting too, it reminds me you were reverse Teddy Pendergrass. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know that's how Teddy Pendergrass, after he was paralyzed, that's how he was able to sing, because they kind of trained him. It was in a Teddy P documentary.
Oh, yeah.
When
I knew that. Yeah,
when you, muscles.
You said Teddy, I was thinking somebody else. Yeah, 100%. After he was in the car accident, yep.
You remember they had him use his other muscles in his back and manifest those to get the vocal out, Yeah,
no, that's incredible.
Yeah, so you kind of reverse from that. That's crazy. I want to segue here and say some notes that, I kind of got into in our last build, but for listeners now, so they get it all there. There's some things, and even in this new album, All the Brilliant Things, which to me, it's a fitting title, though, because the album is brilliant. But
thank you.
There are some things that I always note about you, and I feel like some of the songs, they also note them too, so we get into them. But some of the things that people don't note, and I don't see how you see this, though, is that you do this a lot in your lyricism. First off, I've always seen you in a handful of MCs, you're one of the MCs that are supposed to be like on the radio all the time. Because I consider you in a lot of ways, I was thinking of this, but not on an MC level, but on a beat level, because you had mentioned Dilla in one of the songs. I was like, yo, it got me daydreaming, and I was thinking like, yo, the way you MC is kind of like a Dilla on the mic. And not Jay Dilla rhyming on the mic, but Jay Dilla beats if they were lyrics, if they were
the
MCing.
rap version of his production. Wow, that's pretty insane, man. I appreciate that. That's pretty insane. I get why you're saying that.
Yeah, I'll tell everyone why, right? The reason I say this is because when you rhyme, a lot of times you could daydream and there's something that you're catching as a hook or a melody. That's what I mean by like that. You've got a flurry of accents, like what I called it a melisma, because you're not singing, so it's a different type of accent. But there's so many hooks to the way that you rhyme, the way you inflect and all that kind of. It has a lot of natural hooks. Kind of like when we heard Jay Dilla on making Tribe beats, we're like, why is this so hook laden? Like, I was real rigid.
Right.
And I was like, why isn't this like Midnight? Look, it has like this hook laden to it. It's not crossover, but it could be. And the way you rhyme has that all the time. You know what I'm saying? And then you have something, and I kind of made this up because of two people. It was me making fun of Jay-Z and how he, obviously he starts every song, he goes, and he does it like a million times. So I always do that when I want to be annoying. And and I was saying, like, you're the only guy that has his own pretty hiccup. You know what I'm saying? Because you have like that when you do it, you know? And the only other guy I remember really doing it in a different way was Sean. Sean Price used to do it, though. And I felt like he was doing it more like a punch, like a gut punch, you know?
Right.
And but the way you do it is real flashy. And that also is kind of a pop aspect to it, you know? And I was thinking, like, how come skyzoo's supposed to be on, like, Hot 97 all the fucking time? You know what I mean? And
no, I agree with you. The way you broke all that down is crazy.
Because J Dilla beats, they always have something that could turn a club out, even if they're not even listening to that kind of music.
Always.
So
every trip.
it could be, right? It could be DJ Toshi DJing and J Dilla will work. It could be a trap DJ playing Whatever I Hate in a club and it's going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there's this way that he was always able to blend in all these different places while being him. And honestly, that's something I've always done in my music. If I don't say anything else about my music, that's something I can easily say, no doubt about it, without blinking twice. You know, that I've always been somebody who I just blend without trying to blend. I don't say, yo, I gotta fit in the club. I gotta fit in the street. I gotta fit in with the backpackers. I gotta fit in with the nerds. I don't do none of that. I just make my music. I come from so many different walks of musical life. It just comes out that way. It's kind of like Quincy Jones. Like, he could do so many different things while being him. You know, it kind of just comes out that way. Or Miles Davis or whatever. Or like you said, Dilla, you know, like, it kind of just comes out that way. And that's not me saying, all right, today we got to focus on these guys. Today we got to focus on this crowd. Like, nah, I just go in there and create.
Indeed. I want to go through this All Brilliant Things album, but I'll end up jumping around from song to song. And it reminds me, obviously, it segues into I was supposed to be a trap rapper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the last time that we built, and for the listeners know if they're listening, I always say this old shit. And I actually have a book that I'm working on this too. There's a different book I'm working on called The Dark Ages. My experience in the 2000s, but also, you know, how the music decayed. And we had talked about this, and it's like you took all of the you know, the beautiful decay, like it really is, you know what I mean? Like all the stuff that I was like, that's going to ruin the music. No, it's going to dilute the music. And you're here, you know, you're here having fun with it. And I'm like, that's disgusting. You know what I mean? I have to cleanse you. And it became you, this great MC. And it's like, you're impossible. You're not supposed to exist in many ways in my thought process for many years. You know what I mean? And
wow.
And I was supposed to be a trap rapper. I love that you talked about all that, because I was like, yeah, you know, like, because a lot of people try to merge these things that they were all hearing. And and I talk about it with a lot of people, different MCs, whether they be like that they're around the same age group as you, even younger, from Rome Streets all the way to Noah the Flood I was building with, and all of them. And they're influenced by a lot of stuff that came out. Locks, like all of these things that really had their fury in the 2000s. And all of the dilution of other musics, you know, the way the treble left and became the dominant force, and the way filtered drums disappeared, and, you know, whatever it was, right? But the choice of what to make now is still more centered in that 90s era. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it still ends up more centered there. And I always like to ask you that question in how you're choosing beats and stuff like that. Does this really conflict? Or are you having a war in the mind? Or is this like, it doesn't feel that way? You're just picking how it just vibes and stuff.
That's literally it. It's the latter, man. It's just what I feel and how I'm digging it. And, you know, when I pick a beat, I could tell in 10, 15 seconds if I want it or not, like right away. You know, I remember reading an article when I was a kid. It was the Source magazine. Dr. Dre was on the cover, and he was talking about, you know, just being great and all that cool stuff. And he said he can tell in 10, 15 seconds if he likes a song or not. They was asking him about artists, like signing artists and all that type of stuff. And he was saying how he can tell in the first 10, 15 seconds. And I think subconsciously that seeped into me, because when I listen to beats, man, if somebody play me a beat, 10, 15 seconds, I already know if I want it or not. I don't have to listen no more. Now, I can keep listening because I like the beat. I'm like, yo, this beat is crazy. I don't want to stop playing. I want to hear it because it's so crazy and I want to see where else it goes. But I could tell in like 15 seconds, like, yeah, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip that. Oh, snap. Let me let that play. That shit is crazy. You know, like I could tell right away. So it's a gift. That part is a gift, man. I wasn't taught that. I wasn't trained that. That ear for beats, man, that is a God-given gift. You can't, like, you can sit there and write all day and get nicer and nicer and just write. You can't get nicer and nicer at picking beats, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's just what you like and what you don't like. And it's a gift on your ear saying, yeah, that's what you should pick right there. And I've always had that gift, thank God.
Indeed, because there's such a great consistency between, like, the ones that we feel that can't go wrong. You know, you do an album with Pete Rock, you know, us as the listener, like, I can't go wrong. No, he could give you anything out the trunk. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Right. You know, or Apollo Brown, who's been doing it for so long.
Right.
But then you choose your own beats. And then, you know, I love to shuffle the whole skyzoo catalog and how it blends together so seamlessly. You know what I mean? Musically. And I feel like when you pick your own music, producer by producer, track by track, it definitely has a real musical resonance, you know, especially, and I want to say jazz, but it's really just musical, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of funk in there, and there's a lot of other stuff in there too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. No, you know, a lot of people, if you work with one producer, it's probably going to be really great. It could be really great or it could be really bad, but either way, it's one producer, so it's one sound. But a lot of times, people do an album with one producer, and it's fantastic, and then they do an album which I call a solo album because it's you by yourself and you're picking these other producers and you're A&R and you're doing all that. So, you know, those are really solo albums, and they'll jam that up. Like, it'll get bad, like you said, you know. But for me, again, I've just always been blessed with the idea of just picking beats. Yeah, just like being able to pick great beats and knowing how to put a record together. Like, okay, I can have 10 different producers on one album, but it'll sound like one group of producers did it. It'll sound like if the Hitmen did it or Trackmasters or whoever, you know, it'll sound like one crew. And these guys never met each other. Some of them don't even live in the same country. But I'm able to kind of curate and put this thing together to make it all make sense on this one quilt. Yeah, it's definitely something I've been doing forever.
And, you know, this is something I like to ask because some people have told me this. A lot of MCs tell me this, though, that when they get their own beats, though, they're doing a lot of the post arrangement, too. You know, so they're doing some of the production because they're arranging those lyrics onto, you know, their beats, you know, and they're choosing the arrangements, you know.
Yeah, I do that, man. Sometimes there's records on this album. I'll give the producer the sample. I'll give you the sample. I'll pick out the drum break or whatever. I'll tell you where I want the drums to change at. I'll tell you where I want the hook to go and how I want the drums to totally change on that hook, how I want this part filtered. Everything, man. I'm really in there a lot of times producing the record. I just don't know how to work the machinery, so I don't know how to do it. But I'll go in there and Puff Daddy it all day. Like, yo, I need you to do this, and then do that, and then do this, and then do that. You know, like, and then even with the instrumentation, when I bring in keys and I bring in strings and trumpets, the producer who did the beat, he'll hear all that shit later. Like, he had nothing to do with it. You know, like you'll have one of my records on the album. They won't know I added trumpets and strings and Fender Rhodes and all that until the record comes out. Like, I did that. I brought these guys in. I added them. I had them play here and here and here. A lot of times with the trumpet stuff, I'll write the trumpet arrangement. I'll be like, yo, I want it to play out like this. And then my man will go in there and play it like that. And then he'll add some other genius to it and it'll go crazy. So I really am in there putting my thumbprints all over it.
Indeed, indeed. You know, now, as far as all the brilliant things, right? For the listener, this is obviously an album centered around gentrification. And I want to preface that and really kind of to the listener for the connection, but also to you, skyzoo, because I'm sure you don't know this. Probably, you know, you're coming from Brooklyn and you made an album about gentrification, and you're not the only NYC group that made an album about gentrification.
Right.
I had him here recently. Marcano, aka Prince Power. I don't know if you know who Prince Power is. And he made a group and a collective of us, artists, MCs, producers, and he called us the Leftovers, you know? And the Leftovers was from him out in Bushwick and some of the white folk, you know, the hipsters, they had looked at him and others, and they had referenced the Puerto Ricans that were still in Bushwick as the leftovers, you know?
Wow.
And that got him real irate. So he's like, yo, we got to do something about that. And, you know, we all took parts in it. I shared some poetry. Other brothers shared their verses, production, artwork. It's a whole collective called The Leftovers NYC. And we released the album earlier this year, Engraved in New York. But it was about gentrification and about all of this. And that's really the ethos of what we were doing, you know? And what I loved about all the brilliant things is something that I've been saying in a lot of the thing in the one piece that I had that opened the album, that was really a center of a lot of the albums, that gentrification isn't really just people moving into your neighborhoods. It's also them taking your culture. You know what I mean?
100%.
And
that's what the record's about.
Right,
because
right.
It's about, I've been telling people, you know, it's a two-headed monster, this album, as far as gentrification and cultural appropriation, because the two go hand in hand. And a lot of people may not realize that, but the two go hand in hand seamlessly, you know, and these guys are moving your building, and they'll be the ones writing about your clothing line, or writing about your restaurant, or writing about your album. And they moved in upstairs, yet they don't understand what you're doing. They're telling you what you're doing is not a representation of your neighborhood when they just got there last month, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, you know, when we study gentrification and the depths, we know that, like, the last effects that we see, like, you know, like the hipsters are really like the, you know, the symptoms of the cold, you know what I mean? It's a whole deep, you know, real estate hustle. It's really colonization through real estate. But, you know, what I find interesting is that, and I wanted to throw this idea, I've really written about, this is how I feel. I really feel that gentrification, this is something that has been happening for a long time, and there's many books that talk about it. But I feel that hip hop itself is what slowed down gentrification in New York City. Because part of gentrification was destroying boroughs. Well, and that was, you know, being blatantly done in the Bronx. But then all of a sudden, an actual culture that can be monetized is coming out of the Bronx.
Right.
And then if we look at how fast it was, like, you know, I definitely, this example you would see, if we look at how jazz and how it got commercialized, that the rate of how it got commercialized is so much slower, you know, than hip hop. You know what I'm saying? You look at hip hop, by the 90s, it's already commercialized. You know what I mean? Which is like light speed compared to jazz. They didn't even learn how to really play it. You know, whites didn't really learn how to play it with the ethos of improvisation and creativity for a while. It took them like a couple of decades, you know? So I really think that gentrification was slowed down by this thing that we ended up creating out there, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's crazy because just some things here, right? When you start at the album, right? The first song is Free Jewelry, and that really is about the gentrification of the art. And, you know, it goes without saying that if I talk to you, skyzoo, I have to Michael Eric Dyson some of your bars here. You start off with the easy, you know, I'm like, damn, this guy, you know, he makes a full logical sentence about his LP titles in the intro. You know what I mean? Just fucking with us. I felt like that was just, you're just fucking with us. You know what I mean? In the beginning.
Yeah, I was.
And it was just, but it makes sense. It actually makes sense with like how it's going and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it works too because your albums are so cinematic, you know, since especially like it becomes blatant, like, you know, Dream Deferred and so many of them. This album really fits into the canon, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many things that you do, you know what I mean? Like you said, cause when they don't, I'm saying it fucked up. Cause when they told us "C'est la vie," I ain't take my seat. I stood on top of that table and I sprayed my piece. And the ones who followed along is who they gave my reach. But how can I be appalled when they was raised by me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so much in that line though, because it's almost like it's people appropriating, but they're also doing what they learned that you shared with them. It's kind of Twilight Zone-ish, you know what I mean?
and that line too, I'm talking about that stuff, but I'm also talking about other MCs. Like I'm kind of talking about the game. And I'm looking at it like, you know, when they told me to be one way musically, I didn't. You know, I didn't take my seat and listen. I stood on top of that table in the classroom and I started spraying off. Like I started letting off, you know, and then the ones who followed that, the ones who did the same thing and was like, yo, I'm standing on top of my desk too, and I'm going to spray at everybody too. I'm not just going to sit down and be complacent. These are the ones who they giving the applause and everything to, and they calling them the greatest, and they giving them accolades and giving them awards and da-da-da-da-da. And that's cool. How can I be appalled by that and so mad at that? These motherfuckers came from me. You know what I mean? Like, they was listening to me when they was coming up, and now they out here running. Yeah, how can I be mad? Like, they came from me. They my kids. You know what I'm saying? I'm still young, but these motherfuckers is my kids musically. You know what I mean? So rock out, make daddy proud, you know?
How do you keep the inspiration? You know, let's keep it real. Like, there's influence, but there's also a lot of biting. And the longer you're in something, the more you get bitten, you know? And I know that's got to be frustrating, you know?
Yeah. I'm inspired just by continuing to tell great stories and make great music. You know, I don't go out there chasing anybody else. For me, it's really about chasing myself and just being great. If I'm chasing anybody, it's the ones before me, the GOATs and all that type of stuff. But I really just want to continue to one-up myself and continue to just build this flawless catalog, man, that, you know, when I'm gone, regardless of if I get it now or not, when I'm gone, heads is like, yo, nobody had a catalog like Sky. And it's crazy because this album is the one that has people saying that, where they're like, yo, no one has a catalog like this guy. Even some of the guys who, they may be your favorite rapper, it's like, yeah, but they had an album that, this album wasn't that good. This single, they was reaching, trying to be mainstream. This single, they went and did something because another region was hot at the time, so they went and did that, and they put on a funny looking shirt to blend in. You know, like, yo, Sky never did that. Every time, every single, every album was out of the park. Like, who else could really say that? You know, all of our favorites, man, like, you know, you can't say Big because Big wasn't here long enough. So everything Big left was amazing. You know what I mean? But like, outside of that,
right.
A lot of these guys, man,
5+ albums, guys. You know, guys with 5+.
Yeah, they got one or two where you be like, yeah, I don't really listen to that. Or they got one or two where they won't touch it when they perform, or they won't talk about it,
you know,
because they didn't like it. You know what I mean?
It's why in my book, Filtered Real, I had this. I truly see you as an essential MC. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
You definitely rank with any of the greats. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
And you know what? It's interesting because when I try to judge music as a journalist, as a historian, I'm okay with artists that make a bad album, because every legend in other genres I've ever met, whether it's, you know, like, and spoke to, like Willie Colon or other people in other genres and stuff, they have some duds, you know what I mean? And it's okay, you know what I mean?
Right.
But not you. All of these albums, I'd say, pick the order you want to get them in, you know what I mean?
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you know, I compare stuff to sports a lot, and, you know, heads have bad seasons. Somebody go out there and have a bad season. That's like an album. An album is like a season. You know what I mean? Like, heads go out there and they have a bad season. Like, that, you know, so-and-so, his averages fell off, but the next year he went and got busy. Like, this is not a flex. It's just a blessing. I haven't had that, you know, like, you know, I strive to put my best foot forward every single time and just continue to one-up myself. And I don't care if I won the championship this year or not. I'm going to the gym and shoot 1,000 jumpers tomorrow, just like if I didn't win last night. You know, that's the way I approach it.
I've heard you say that, you know, and I always like to ask, though, like, what are the, you know, when I tell my students as a writer, you know, I write at least 1,000 journal pages a year. That's at least, you know, 25 pages a week at least, you know what I mean? That's wow. And so these are like the jump shots. What are your jump shots? What are the jump shots for skyzoo?
For me, I don't write every day. I'm more of the Biggie mold in the sense of I only write when I'm working on something. So, you know, there's the Pac mold and the Biggie mold. The Pac mold is he would just write and record every single day. So 20 years later, we still getting new albums, you know, because there was so much material.
Right.
And then Biggie had 2.5 albums. You know what I mean? He had 2 albums, And then he had a couple records left over for Born Again, and that was it. And they just trying to piece some stuff together. I'm more of that mode. Like, if it's time to work on an album or a single or a feature or ghostwriting, I go in the studio and I work. Other than that, I don't really just sit home and just write a song just to write, but I freestyle a lot. Like, that's how I shoot my jumpers. I freestyle all day. Like, I'll be, in the house just freestyling to myself, or I'll be in the supermarket kind of freestyling to myself. I freestyle all day, and that's kind of how I keep my jumper fresh and keep my snapping my wrist, spreading my fingers. That's how I keep that going. But I don't just sit home and write songs every day just to write. Nah, everything I write, there's a purpose. There's an album for it. There's a project for it. There's a reason. Somebody wants a feature. Okay, now I got to go write. Somebody want me to pen something for them. Now I got to go write. It's time to work on an album for the next 6 months. Now I got to go write. But when I'm done, I'm not really writing unless there's a cause or a purpose for it.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely see that. Another quote from the song Free Jewelry, and it's just because it's dope. It's the juggling that you do. And then here, I feel like you were playing with the word juggle itself. You said they preached loyal like that. They taught it like that, did what they had to do with it and brought it right back, juggling and hope they don't jam you behind a wall with a plug with family behind the wall.
Right.
The word juggling has its function in there, but you're actually juggling the words as well. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just artwork. I just want to make note of the artwork there. You know what I mean?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
But me as I say this a lot to people. My most used hashtag that for a guy who doesn't rap, I got some slang, and my most used hashtag I've used in the last 10 years has been respect fake or never respect fake and shit like that, right? And when you said, I don't do this for Complex nor Pitchfork or any other facade, where the culture is determined while chugging a BBR and telling you how to represent all of the shit that you made while they move in your building and their roommates. I get it, I do, but remember who you listening to, and I would never let you make me bid you adieu. From the K, so as cool as I keep shit. I'm gonna keep it honest though. A lot, I spend most of my time. I've spent probably my whole career burning bridges though. So probably every magazine I've been at, I've criticized in front of them, behind them, after them, and even as while I was with them, and I probably got fired because of that. You know what I'm saying? And some of them, you know what I mean? But a lot of rappers. They're not willing to say certain things that you're saying about that. They always want to keep it nice, and they don't want to say what's really wrong with like the point of the journalism, because it isn't about like pointing out those particular people's Complex or Pitchfork, but that's really what they are. They're basically doing that. They're telling us what our stuff is, and they don't really have that point of contact. They weren't really there for the lyric, like. I constantly read genius.com lyrics, and I see people tell stuff, and I've even gotten in arguments where I say, listen, I'm a 5%er. I've been teaching at the school 20 years though. That's not what we teach right there. That's not right. And I see people telling me, no, that's not it. That's what they do over there. You know what I mean? Like,
and you're like, wait, but that's me. What do you? How you gonna tell me about me? You know what I mean? It wasn't really about clapping them down. It wasn't right. Waving, it wasn't raising a banner saying screw them. It wasn't really that. It more so was just saying, listen, man, I don't do this for any type of acceptance or validation from people who don't come from it. It's harder for them to get it, but they don't recognize or respect the fact that it's harder for them to get it. They kind of just go with it because they have the power. I don't do this for them, because if I did this for them, then I would do this a totally different way, and I would approach it a different way. I do this for the people who really do get it, people like you. The people who do understand, the people who it's going to serve. Like, that's who I do this for. And I'm explaining to you who some of these other people are that I don't do it for. So it wasn't really about chopping them down. Right. It was just about me making it clear and just being like, yo, don't get it twisted. Like, this is who I do this for, and this is who I don't do it for. Like, none of that defines me, because a lot of these sites, man, like, whether it's them or whoever, it ain't really about them, but anybody, a lot of these sites, they'll big you up. Like, you'll be the new hot thing today, and they'll be all over you. And then tomorrow they won't touch you, or they won't touch you today. But then if Jay-Z come in the room and throw his arm around my shoulder, oh, forget it. I'm all over Pitchfork and Complex and Fader and that. and Vice, and I'm all over it. Then now they skyzooed out. You can't, and and when they talk about me, they're gonna talk about, oh, he's been so great since 2009 and his first album and da da da. So why you ain't say that before? You know what I mean? Like, why you ain't say that in the moment? And that's what I'm talking about. You know, it's all these other things of validation that I'm not here for, man. I want to make sure the people I'm talking about on this album feel properly represented and that I got it right. That's who I'm here for.
I definitely appreciate that answer. You know what I mean? I've been in those rooms where I'm still open on an artist that's making great music, and I'll pitch it, and then get laughed out the room. And it's because their time is done. You know what I'm saying? So we talk about 15 minutes of fame, but in journalism, though, there are 15 pages of fame. You know what I mean? And when your 15 pages are up, they're done with you. You know what I mean? And
that's real.
It's very frustrating. You know, we move on to the St. James Liquors, right? And I just thought that first verse was perfect. It's perfect verse.
Thank you.
And it was like it had like a child's-eye snapshot of the hood, a youthful snapshot of the hood. And, a lot of us don't remember in detail like that. And that's why I liked it. You know what I mean? Some of us don't remember the whole detail like that, even living it. And what I also was thinking is, like, great narratives of the street. If you go to legends and stuff, right? A lot of legends, their narratives always have to end with somebody dying or something happens horrible before, during, or at the end. And you're able to give us like a gritty narrative, but it doesn't really have to end that way. Just a snapshot. It's just
right.
It's just a picture. It's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't have to die, like, I was thinking about Jizza when he said, because like Jizza verse, he'll give you the whole snapshot, but they did die in the beginning, they got pushed into the track, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, something like that, but, or a lot of Nas tracks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, this line was really crazy at the end where you said, or lines, or a kid who can picture it when the day done, growing up out of pocket while being shown how to make one. My man's followed the flute of whoever played one. Theme songs recorded until the tape done. I heard them all, but was juggling how my tapes run. 13 with a view of how good a crown fit. Word to everyone I was floating around with. There's such a melodic sense to that, the imagery there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing to say about that, skyzoo. I'm just quoting the shit. It's just, what the fuck? You know what I mean? That's just poetry. You know what I mean? And for the listener, if you didn't catch that, that's what I'm here for, right?
Yeah, there's a ton in that little line right there. That's the thing about my music, man. That's why when people be talking about album of the year this, album of the year that, I'm like, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, you can't sit there and do a 20-minute breakdown on 2 bars on their record, but you can on mine, and that's every 2 bars. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't want to hear nothing about album of the year if skyzoo is not attached to it. I really don't. You know what I mean? Like, because it's so much to it. Like the line that you just broke down, you just kicked 6 bars, and there was so much in that 6. You know what I mean? And we're not going to go into it because we'll be here all night, and I do got to go. But it's so much in that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
there's too much.
Growing up out of pocket while being shown how to make one. Meaning, like, as a little kid, me being 13, I never was in the house. I just wanted to be outside. So I'm out of pocket. Like, yo, why this little kid won't stay in the house? Like,
right.
I'm always outside. Like, I'm growing up out of pocket. Like, yo, like I'm going against my parents. Like, nah, I'm going outside. Yo, where's Skylar? Oh, he outside. He outside. Like, I was always outside. But then, while growing up out of pocket, while being shown how to make one, me being outside, I was watching how to put something in your pocket. Me being out of pocket was me learning how to put shit in my pocket. You know what I mean? Like, my mans followed the flute of whoever played one. Pied Piper in the neighborhood playing the flute, and all the kids followed the story of the Pied Piper.
Right.
Yeah, the guy who's getting it, all the little kids follow. Like, my mans followed the flute of whoever played one. I heard them all, but was juggling how my tapes run. Like, the theme songs recorded until the tape done. Meaning, like, there's so many songs that this Pied Piper is playing for us as kids. Meaning, there's so many moments of him getting money and being the man in the street and getting to it outside. There's enough songs to fill up a whole tape. Speaking of tapes, I was juggling all these tapes until my tape done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was juggling so many of them because I was, you know, it was the guys in the street, but then it was the music stuff, and then it was this stuff, and it was all these different worlds that I was trapped in, trying to figure my way out of like where I wanted to go because I had so much surrounding me, and that's what 4 of 6 bars is saying out of 2 verses and 2 hooks. Ain't nobody fucking with that. Come on, come on.
Yeah, I can't even, man. And you know, I wanted to ask you, tour of a neighborhood, right? As a note, I just want to say, because I'm from Sunset, I keep saying that I'm from Sunset Park, right? And when you said know your block live when out of towners want to rep where you live, I'm from those neighborhoods where we went to other neighborhoods to get rep. You know what I mean? I'm from the neighborhood where you left to go get reps. So I was feeling that line on the reverse side, on the other side of that line. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you know, I wanted to ask you something about in the idea of Spike Lee. You know what I'm saying? There's such a obviously like the way that you pictorialize your verses though has a lot of Spike Lee in it. You know what I'm saying? And you know that line, energy to tear up a pizza parlor in front of a cop, right?
Right.
And I wanted to ask you about the context because a lot of people that live in the neighborhood that you're from, particularly the Sty, how do you feel the impact of Do the Right Thing after all these years? Because it's sadly a movie that continues to resonate in a lot of the most horrible parts of the movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like it's nonstop. But the crazy thing about it is the movie has lasted so long. I think the movie is one of the main reasons why so many other people want to move to the Sty. Like when they think about the Sty, they think about Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee. Even though Spike is from Fort Greene, but it's only 15 minutes away. But they think about Do the Right Thing. They think about Biggie. They think about Jay. Those are the things that make them go, yo, I want to visit that Sty this summer. And then when they see the love of the Sty, but they also see the changes, they're like, I could totally move here. It's not a Marcy Project Jay-Z song. I could totally move here. And I think Do the Right Thing is one of the things that draws a lot of people to the Sty because it was such a perfect depiction of what it was. Like, that's what my block felt like. You know what I mean? Like, that's what my block felt like. Like, in the summertime, turning on the hydrant, like, you know, breaking the hydrant open and going for it. Going to the pizza shop every single day, sometimes 2-3 times a day. That's what my neighborhood felt like. You know what I mean? So like, you know, I think that movie rings forever. Like, you know, people are attracted to the Sty because of that movie. Ironically, with the racial side of it, but it's weird. Like just the culture and the fashion and the community vibe. That's what brings a lot of people to the Sty. But then they get there and they change it. They get rid of the shit. And it's like, well, that's the oxymoron. How you going to come here and want it and then get rid of it? You know what I mean? Like, so, you know.
Indeed. You know, you know, and it's interesting, too, because even it relates to all of Brooklyn, Do the Right Thing. But then when we watched it, it was like, yeah, that's that particular place, too. It's only that place. That's perfectly that place because it has the intimacy of like a play also. You know what I mean? Because he snaps out such a small amount of blocks, you know? It has that play vibe too, like it's a play on stage too. It's really you know, it's a classic of classics, you know. But you know, for the listener, I'm just throwing this out there. Rich Rhetoric. I mean, a lot of stuff you do. You know what I think of too, and I tell this to the God too. Justice. People know him as J Live. Both of you have like a lot of wordplay that is very subtle, and if you're not really listening, though, you miss the whole shit. And when you said whether by example or literally here to stand to hand, here to hand you epiphanies, literally. The way you use literally in totally different context though, you know what I mean? Little shit like that, because you rhyme in that melodic way that I'm saying, we get lost in just enjoying the melodic flow that you're attaching as you as a vocal musical instrument. And then we forget like, yo, he just said that shit, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's crazy.
It flies over you.
These repeaters, you know, or just lines like "Rich talk from a broke adolescent with bigger eyes." You know what I mean? Bottom of my fitted gray like misunderstandings. You know what I mean? Fucking simile is nuts right there. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's a quadruple on that record that I always break down on stage, and it really just blows people away because they don't even realize like, yo, he did a quadruple. Like he had a quadruple entendre, you know, like I said, Same corner loops we was raised on. Flip A to Z and cruise. Word to a phase on. All love or whichever part that the phase on. So the way you break it down, flip A to Z and cruise. Okay, it's like you're trying to go from A to Z and then take off, right? Like you're trying to get from A to Z and get up out of here. That's the mentality of the street. Flip A to Z and cruise. Word to a phase on. Okay, but then AZ the rapper, his last name is Cruz, Anthony Cruz.
Right.
So flip A to Z and cruise. Word to a phase on. Okay, now we about to hit the third one because that's two already. We about to hit the third one. The third one is AZ phase on from the Paid in Full era with Rich and Poe. Flip A to Z and cruise. Word to a phase on. His name was AZ. His last name was phase on. All love, but whichever part that the phase on. So now you got AZ phase on, but then you got phase on love, the actor. So it goes. There's 4 joints right there, and that's in 4 bars. It's a quadruple entendre right there. Boom.
It's fucking nuts.
It's not even. It's 2 bars. It's a quadruple entendre in 2 bars.
Right.
Flip A to Z and cruise. Word to a phase on. Like it's.
Yeah, because I didn't get the phase on love there. Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts right there. That's nuts.
All word to a phase on. Word to AZ phase on, but then phase on love. All love. Or whichever part that the phase on, 100,000 years in the coupe to set the stage for a scene set, and it keeps going,
Just nuts. And even the similes are just clever, where their arms deep in O's like Vinsanity, you know what I mean? And, the rim, he put his hand in the whole rim and shit, and then the O's.
Kids is arms deep in the O's. They got O's for sale, you know what I mean? They 15 with O's for sale. They arms deep in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, real quick though, skyzoo, right? I had to know. I was like, yo, the blasphemy that you threw on here, right? I was like, has nobody bothered you about this? Because you said Reunited like the best song on the second Woo shit, and I was like, okay, Reunited is the best song on Woo Forever. I was like,
that's my favorite. That's my favorite. That beat was nuts.
Woo Forever is my favorite album. You know what I mean? It's the album that pushed me to get that knowledge of self. You know what I mean? So,
right.
But I can't decide with Triumph. That beat is just too nuts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it worked real nice in the rhyme scheme too. I mean that's my favorite beat off the album, and just the way that record set everything up. But it also worked real nice in the rhyme scheme because my man called me when he got home from jail. Now we reunited, so it just worked real nice in the scheme,
No, Reunited. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the best songs on that album. Yeah. But then you said followed by the Cream Part 2 shit. You talking about the Cream when the Ray
when the beat changes, Scary Hours.
Right, that's right. Okay.
Because they called it Cream Part 2 on the track list, and they called it Cream Part 2. Yeah.
Right, because I remember too that they made a Cream Part 2, but it was something that Ray and Meth did. On the Wu-Tang Forever, they called it. It says Cash Still Rules or something like that, and it was like Scary Hours, Cream Part 2. Yeah. I forgot that it was called. That they had the Cream Part 2 in there. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. One of the great tracks. Yeah. Fucking nuts. You're a nut for that one though. Bringing that.
Thank you, man.
Because I don't think that they write. I don't think when you get new copies of that, they don't put that on there anymore. They just write Scary Hours on it. You know what I mean?
Right. I just remembered it as Cream Part 2, and I was like, that beat.
I've transferred my music so much though. I had to transfer my music so much though, and it rewords shit when you throw it into YouTube Music and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And it takes off that title. It just has Scary Hours and shit. That's crazy that you brought that up. I forgot about that. Damn.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You know what I mean? Let me. There's so many verses here. There's so much to go into this. So I have literally blocks and chunks in here. Something to believe in. This concept of illusions. And I want to ask you specifically about that, just the theme of the song, because somebody thinking like, yo, this is about gentrification and things like that, but part of gentrification is about being given an illusion of things. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So 100%. It fits into this narrative, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, man. It's just, as human beings, take the race out of it, everything. As human beings, we all just want something to believe in. As soon as somebody say something, you believe it. Like, oh, word? Oh, word? Yeah, well, because so-and-so, well, they said so-and-so, well, who's they? No, but they said it's supposed to rain tomorrow. Or they said that restaurant is the new hotspot. or they said Shorty be sleeping with everybody. Well, who's they? Like, we just want something to believe in as human beings. So there we go. You know, and that's the things I'm dancing around all over the record. You know,
the way you rhyme, because you're saying everything ill, a lot of your insights become aphoristic. Like, you could code them as like refrains and stuff. Like when you said, "Cause everybody wants smoke till it comes with a halo." I could see myself saying that to young boys out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, like skyzoo said, "Everybody wants smoke till it comes with a halo." You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm gonna be saying that in the street now. Like, this is gonna be my old man saying and shit. You know what I mean?
There you go. But save them.
There's so much stuff in here. It's just, impeccable shit. Gliding on. There was a lot to say about plugs and connections. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
about this concept though, that we do need connections. We do need these kind of plugs to do things. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's kind of the frustrating thing about doing what we do in hip hop, because there are no sincere plugs everywhere. There are no real connections. You know what I'm saying? And there's so many well-worded stuff you said here. You said dreams is semi-ordered, but your runs is fully tested. And learn to make a way to what you love with what you're left with. And love the unexpected. Learn to love what you live with, protecting what you love, so you jump in front of your building, like jumping in front of your children, whether for territory or knowing the price is next to whatever's left of the story. It keeps going on. But you do this thing, and I wanted to know a technique that you do that I love, that nobody really does this or well enough. A lot of your rhymes dip from first person to second person narrative. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So
it's almost like it's you rhyming, and then it's almost like, as a listener, you grab our hand and say, look what you're doing. And you put us in there like that. That shift in first person, second person narrative never gets confusing when you're rhyming, and it's something that could be so easily butchered.
Right.
How do you write?
Because if you don't do it right, it totally could. You could be like, yo, what's going on? It was this and it was that, but if you do it right, it's a certain skill and a certain technique if you do it right. I think that's just growing up as a writer. That's just growing up as a writer, and all of the things that I read and all of the guys that raised me musically and literature-wise. I was listening to The Genius and Jay and Nas and Biggie, and I was reading Walter Dean Myers. I was reading Bruce C. Kahn. I was reading, Richard Wright and Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim. All the above was when I was like 13. You know what I mean? So like, there's just all this stuff packed in, man, and now it just comes exploding out of the pen and how I just put shit together. It's all these different inspirations. Like, I was inspired by Jay and Nas, and I was inspired by Kurt Cobain as a writer. Like I saw all these different things. Like, Kurt Cobain's one of my favorite writers ever. He's one of the greatest writers ever. Like, take your time, but hurry up. You know what I mean? Like, when he said that, it was so simple, but it was so strong.
Indeed.
Take your time, but hurry up. I was like, whoa. Like, you know what I mean? I was a little kid, like, whoa, bring that back. So who in Bed-Stuy was listening to Nirvana and getting inspiration from it, but wearing Penny Ones and a Hardaway jersey and, Mecca jeans? Nobody. You know what I mean? Like, that was me at 13.
Well, maybe now though, right? The gentrifiers are probably rocking.
Well, there you go. Right. Now I set the stage 20 years out,
Right. Indeed. I didn't even get to my favorite song, and I guess we'll conclude here because there's so much stuff here. skyzoo, you've been building me for a while. My favorite song, though, because I had to pick my favorite song really with you, it's usually the one that I like most musically, because I can't pick the one lyrically. And anything that with Kareem Riggins, I love. I feel like everything I hear him, he always picks the perfect drums. A lot of times you hear stuff and you're like, I wish they did different drums. Those are good drums, but I didn't want those drums on that. You know what I mean? And his work with, Common, August Green, all that stuff. I've loved all of that stuff. You know what I mean? And it's a perfect match, him working with you. And the music on it, the singing, everything is perfect on it. And the concept of vulturing and the profiteering off culture, it comes into the fold again too. And there's so many great lines here. I just throw, when you said made sense of all of it, just as I'm supposed So just as I'm supposed, said to treat it like you water whipping, mixing out a bowl, and all of your desires being driven by the foam. Cooking with integrity, mirrors by the stove. That's crazy right there. I just, forever is forever, but we still trying to elope, right? Live out a jungle where the Simbas pick and roll. And now I had that dream all night though. Simba picking and rolling.
Live out of jungle where the Simbas pick and roll. Like I'm saying, I'm coming live out the jungle. Like I'm live from out of jungle where the Simbas pick and roll. Simba the Lion King. Live out of jungle where the Simbas pick and roll. You ever met a lion that could pin you out a poem? So what I'm saying, like I'm this, but I'm also that. Like I attack the track ferociously. I'm out here in the jungle like a lion, or like even living. Like I came out of the jungle. I came out of this environment, but I could also pin you a poem. So what I'm doing, I'm coming from this neighborhood, but I'm giving you a poetic view of it, and I'm giving you a more scholastic and academic view of it, of this jungle that I came out of. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying there. Like live out the jungle where the Simbas pick and roll. You ever met a lion that could pin you out a poem? Like that's me,
Indeed. I mean, that's just artwork, more artwork. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
This whole, and the thing is, like a lot of these ideas, people have tried to share them, but not so intriguingly to make whole aphorisms out of it. The whole song becomes a real like extended aphorism for this concept. You know what I mean? A concept of people saluting things after they're done. Or not really appreciating them. Oh, you did it. You also in Bodega Flowers as well, and it's crucial. It's crucial because we're so in. As a people, like wherever we're from, in the Caribbean or wherever we're at, we seem to be so progressive to make the next shit, but we're never really appreciative of how that needs to be used by us and benefited toward our benefit.
Right.
It's always short gains. And that becomes in the way that we're lauded as well, and the way that we're appreciated as well, So it's just so many ideas that flood into mind. And honestly, skyzoo, I spent the last 2 weeks immersed in this album and thinking of so many other things about life, about other ways I would detail stuff, and it's just as a writer, constantly inspired by the work that you have. You know what I mean? It's just,
man, that as an artist, man, that's part of our goal, man, to inspire others. You listen to Miles Davis, you inspired. You see a Leroy Campbell painting, you inspired. You watch The Wire or Mo Better Blues, you inspired. Like that's what it is. As art. As artists and putting together art, we're supposed to push that forward. So you saying that means a ton to me, man, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And there's so many great lines that could go on forever. You know what I mean? Even mention a law school in Mecca, if right? The school block from the Apollo.
Yep.
But it's just, I could say, I can't, it's hard to rank. It's hard to rank skyzoo because these are superior works, though. They all have incredible merit, though. And I do feel that way. If you're the listener, though, and you never had a skyzoo record, you start from the present, you go backward, just like we did.
Yeah.
I didn't have all the Rakim albums when I was a kid. I started from the first one and went backwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a great work, and definitely one of the great albums of the year. You know what I mean? It's nothing less than I would expect. You know what I mean? And
thank you, man. Man, that's what it's about, man. And I appreciate how you feel. I appreciate the words. And the time, man, you taking the time out to immerse yourself in the music, man, that means a lot.
Absolutely. And, everything I didn't get to quote or anything like that, they'll be in that next book.
Oh, there's a ton. There's a ton. We barely scratched the surface. There's a ton.
No, these are, maybe one day I could teach a class about skyzoo, at some university. You know what I mean? And,
man, that would be that would be amazing, man.
This is it, though. Listeners, if you're looking for when people, it's why I call this the invisible renaissance, because we keep saying, the music's not what it used to be. And so listen, take away the veil of all of that other shit. You know what I mean? Take away the littles, take away the children's, take away the nursery rhymes and all that other shit. And all the junky stuff, you know what I mean? And you find, as skyzoo said, the loser making all the money. You know what I mean? Right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Y'all made it cool to be the user, so I get paid to be the loser. Fuck it. You know what I mean? in school, the cool guy was the guy making the money. Now the cool guy's the guy using, the guy's beat out. All right, well.
It's all different. It's all rearranged. You know
what I'm saying?
And that's why I called all this era the Invisible Renaissance, because there's so much greatness, and it's right under that veil. You know what I mean? And skyzoo, you're at the top. You know what I mean? You're at the top. You know, of anybody.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that 100%, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely an honor, man. And that's it for our show. So until the next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. For skyzoo, I'm your host, Sunez Allah, a.k.a. Skilla Straight Low. And as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.